everybody, one and all, hither and yon, thereabouts, hereabouts, and why not, even in, the States. I sent somebody a text message who I don't know, or an Instagram direct message who I don't know very well. I do this pretty often, actually. But in one case, not long after, the November result, I was like, I will not be visiting your fascist crippled country in the coming months for tourism purposes, as I had once considered. Kind of. Anyway, and that, folks, is a really rambling, pretty fractured, pretty dysfunctional-ish kind of intro to I'm going to be straight. This year has kind of turned me into hamburger, and I'm glad to be in the vacation part of it now. And so with this is before we even get too far, even further out of the gate. This is Today New Brunswick, Tomorrow the World. We aspire to do this thing more than once a month. It kind of got away from us a bit, mostly me. I'll be real, this past few months or whatnot. But anyway, here we are. We've limped through to the end of the year. I have. Maybe you're soaring with the Eagles, Dan. Maybe you're just kicking ass and taking names all the way into 25. I'd be interested to hear, quite frankly. And why don't you even tell us what we're all even about here? The rockin' as ever, Dan Hayward, and myself, the somewhat less rockin' but bloodied and unbowed Matt Stranik here with you, right? So how's right. Your how would you characterize your 25, Dan, or your 24, Dan, going into your 25? What's your overall vibe? You kind of dissembled a bit on the topic. What's your overall takeaway this year so far, give or take?
It was definitely a year where I don't know. It was the kind of year where I had to sort of stop and reevaluate certain things and like reevaluate my approaches to certain things, because it just got real overwhelming for a while there. So I don't know. I'm heading into 2025 slightly more medicated and, that kind of fun thing. And just not trying to predict outcomes, just curious what the fuck is going to happen in the next year. I've just been inputting. Yeah, I know this is. Oh yeah, by the way, this is our sort of favorites from 2024 episode. And just in trying to put together some stuff from this list, like it's still, I feel like my list is still pretty like second half of the year heavy, just because the year felt so goddamn long. Like I saw a reference to the Australian break dancer who fucking scammed her way into representing the company. Right? Raygun. Yeah, I had completely like Raygun felt like years ago. You know what I mean?
Rage at the time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
At the time, we used to wear an onion around our belt and talk about Raygun on social media for enough time.
Yeah, it was anyway. But yeah, so anyways, this is our favorites from the year 2024 episode. And yeah, like I said, it's been an interesting one, but like I said, I've definitely made some changes this year for the positive, I think, or at least, kind of started paying better attention to some shit. You know what I mean?
I guess I'll agree with you there and say kudos for that, all of it. And I would just say that my real thing that I'm kind of sliding out of here with is just a profound gratitude for some pretty key people in my life who are just around me, where, if I mention who they are, be like, oh yeah, so I won't, take away the minutes from that, maybe in the notes. But the other thing is, man, as I grow older, I cannot possibly find enough value to put on just my day-to-day sense of wellness and well-being and overall just sort of mental health and flow through my day-to-day. Like, if that feels like it's sort of got a good energy to it, if I feel like I kind of got a good momentum, if I got good reasons for what I'm doing and I can sort of describe those reasons at any given moment to somebody, most of the time I feel, like, okay, well, it's rationality sort of tends to prevail. But man, I've just been through, like, again, an unexpected period of unemployment, moving from one side of a country to another, completely new sort of context of being like moving out of the private sector, a brief foray into the private sector, back into public higher ed, dealing with this whole notion of like AI God, enhanced. Anyway, like
Infested?
that didn't exist when I was around before. It's not that I feel old. It's just like, oh yeah, I've really been out of this front end of the game for a while, right? Better part of a decade. And so now, like, I went through this whole thing at work, and it's just been a really interesting growth and opportunity to become yet another Maritimer in Fort Mac, just going, hey, boys, how's about that, boys? Kind of different around here, hey. I'm one of them, right? As is my historical friggin' and cultural birthright, I say. White trash from the Maritimes, you know, somewhat indebted to the CRA, but not necessarily. Somewhat like, okay, strike it out for the West Coast there, boy. Not a moment too soon. Not the West Coast, Fort Mac, whatever. God. So it's great here, though. And so with all that longer kind of preamble, I actually am holding back on releasing the latest episode just because I wanted to have full attention for this one. But the one we recorded a month ago, which again feels to me more like, as you say, Dan, you know, a year. Like it's been like a dog's year, where like the periods of time are like equivalent to what a dog's lifespan almost tends to be. Like you do like 30% and more of it, kind of deal. So 4 and like, you know, 3.5 years ago, but I only mean really a month. You know, we did that episode, and it's I don't know. I need to spend an hour and a half doing it, and then it'll get done. But now I'm off work. Ooh, anybody who says teachers don't deserve their time off, like enhanced or whatever, extra time off at the holiday season or summer, just has no concept of ever having something where you can spend 60 hours a week doing it and still feel like you don't even have like enough of it covered to be anywhere close to where you want to be. That's how, you know, because it's not even like the demands of work outputs or such. It's just there's that many people who have like a stake in what you're involved in, and you want to give everybody their full attention, right? So for me, going back to the show, because we are dissembling a bit here. At least I am. At least Dan's not. I kind of am. What I kind of did was I did my proper list, you know, my proper list, just to make sure I got all the things that I kind of more or less wanted to on a single piece of paper. I took a picture of it. I put it on Instagram. It actually got tagged I tagged a few people because why the hell not? It's Instagram. And John Snodgrass actually noticed it and kind of chimed in on something. And so I'm going to default to that. I got that file, like that image file sitting here on my computer. But really, what I plan to do is actually add some randomness to mine. And so I'm going to be playing a thing where I've got my sort of yearly YouTube playlist, and I'm just going to kind of scroll through until I hit, you know, because if it's on that list, the list for me is called 2024 You Fucking Die. Sort of supposing what the year was going to hold for me based on current trends, I suppose, at the end of last year. Not too far off past Matt Stranek, I'll give you that. And so I'm just going to sort of go through and go, oh, okay, well, this will make a conversation point, because then I still got, you know, the proper list as an image file that I can plug into the notes and sort of dissemble on in the, you know, notes format, because we are a multimodal show, ladies and gentlemen, and I have a PhD in a thing called online learning, which does tend to involve the internet a little bit. So why the heck not use a hybrid, blended moment for the show? God help us all, Dan. I really needed this. Anyway, why don't you tell me about what's on your first list, Brother? I'd be interested to hear.
I know I kind of went long with my list this year. I couldn't narrow it down to just 5. And I mean, I feel like a lot of it's stuff we've talked about on the show already.
Of course.
Like, for example, the last episode, I guess it hasn't come out yet, but last episode I talked about the new Chat Pile album, Cool World. And like that has just been one of my consistent listens, like, since it came out. it's just been out within came out within the last couple months, but still, like, it's nice to hear like a good, refreshing, heavy album that I mean, it does have some obvious inspirations like in different parts,
Where are they
but
from? I'm sorry, remind me the venue,
they're
city
from
or...
they're from Oklahoma.
Oh, well, dang. All right,
Yeah,
that's cool.
exactly.
I like Red.
Yeah.
One of the bands that I really have enjoyed a lot this year, Red City Radio, is out of Tulsa. And that's the only band I can say outside of like musical and folk acts and whatnot that I can point to. They go, okay, I get it. So Oklahoma, you say? Do tell. Do go on, sir.
Yeah, they're from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Okay.
I was gonna say, way back in the '90s when I used to help put on punk rock shows in Calgary, there was a hardcore band from Tulsa that came through called Brother Inferior, and I got the impression that was basically like the scene in Tulsa. That were just was the four guys in that band who, like the punk scene in Tulsa at the time was like the four guys in that band and their one friend that was tagging along with them. But, they were the ones that were doing everything cool in town kind of deal. But yeah, Chat Fowler from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. This is their second album, their second full length. And yeah, it's just kind of a mix of like, your Jesus Lizard, Big Black style, like kind of, Albini adjacent noise rock with like,
or touch and go records generally, because
or just generally,
not, right?
like that touch and go, like Amphetamine Reptile Records kind of sound,
dirty, no noise rock.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like,
but like, there's some like
influences, for sure.
Yeah, there's like it's kind of like weirdly noodly in parts, and like kind of has some like almost like melodic like post-hardcore, but still kind of like keeping it really dark and just like ugly. Like their sound is ugly.
And if we're going in that area, I'll just throw something out there that Scratch Acid has like this huge reissue thing coming out like basically right now, where if I was collecting vinyl again, I'd be all over it. And that's the one thing where I heard that made my ears go up, where I'm like, fuck, I wish I was buying records again. Yeah, Scratch Acid, right? Of that era. And it's like, that wasn't just like a descriptor of the band, it's like a descriptor of what the band was doing.
And
Please go.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that was one of like the for like a heavier band that's they're not like they're still on like an indie label. It's not like they're like super high profile or anything, but they're like, or like they're not they're not selling out stadiums, but just to reach that like touring international kind of level and like putting out albums that'll end up on like the needle drops, like top albums of the year and like that kind of thing. And
they might not have day jobs right now, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. They may have have moved away from day jobs. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's like just
not kicking it at Staples or whatnot for a few years. Like, all right, good on you. You need to justify the endeavor no further, my dude. That's
for sure. Yeah, and they're just like, I don't know. It's just like fun, original kind of like blending of a few different sounds, but just like heavy and ugly, and like heavy and ugly in ways that it's just kind of nice to see that getting some more recognition.
Some play again in times such as these, right?
Exactly. And speaking, if I could just because my list, it's I might go two at a time here. Just because I picked a fair bit, and some of them are like interconnected. But just as far as like the heavier bands hitting like a higher profile, not to be old man trying to like catch on to trends, but that band knocked loose. I've been pretty impressed by their new album, You Won't Go Before You're Supposed to. And yeah, I don't know if you're familiar at all.
I'll tell you, dude, that's actually on my PDF or my image file here. And the reason it is because at one point I've transitioned off of Apple Music because I decided I just fucking hate the interface, the user interface for Android so much. And so at one point I landed on Bandcamp as like, I'm going to do all my stuff on Bandcamp. And then I just stepped away from that. But when I was stepping into that, I still have the Bandcamp on my phone, and I still like go through it pretty often because there is some pretty actually boutique kind of stuff on there. And
Yeah.
I did stop on the Amphetamine Reptile page. It's Amphetamine Reptile, Pure Noise. So it's one of those like higher
It's Pure
profile,
Noise.
right?
That's the label that they're on.
Pure Noise.
I've got two Pure
And
Noise
so, like,
artists on
I was
my
going
on
through
my
it, and I was
list.
like, okay, here's this band. And then they actually made their TV debut on Fallon or some shit.
Yeah.
And,
it was on. It was on.
There was some like
Jimmy
commentary, like, yeah, exactly. And they had like a female singer, Poppy, I guess. Is like
Poppy, who's
in.
Yeah, she's
so there we go,
was,
right? Knocked Loose, and I was like, and then there was some following commentary. Woman complains that TV noise music, like crunk crunk, and I'm like, yeah, that's what hardcore is supposed to sound like. Big crunk, the crunk, like fucking mangled, sort of like they actually. I found nothing there to dislike, and a lot that made me interested, and I probably want to listen to that record from top to tail. Except that I was just running so full tilt on all my fucking professional stuff. We're gonna call it stuff. That I just wasn't like, oh well, I should listen to this whole thing now, from start to finish. It's like with Kendrick. I'm like, I know he has that record out. He released a record on my son's 15th birthday, which let's let the significance of that land in. 1122. That's Ethan's birthday, and that's the day that Kendrick dropped that record. I haven't listened to it yet from top to because my bandwidth is just. But still, it's a cool thing, right?
Yeah.
I can actually. I've sort of been gleefully throwing the demise of Drake via Kendrick at Ethan through the Instagram, and I'm like, boom! I haven't even gotten to this.
Family's torn apart by the great battle.
Boy, I didn't like him now.
Yeah.
Drake had some freaking like look-alike competition or some shit. Wait, like, and he gave it to a woman, gave her $10,000. Like, oh yeah, the cornball from Toronto. Like, okay, yeah, he had that like. Oh yeah, and anyway, Dan.
Anyways,
go on.
Knock Loose. Like they're one of those bands that like I've heard the name around for a bit, but I just never really, I don't know.
From Kentucky, right?
Yeah, they're from Kentucky, and like they're maybe it's just I'm old. I don't always look into everything all the time, and I did mention that they were fairly popular. Up to a certain point, and it was like just sort of being familiar enough with the scene they were traveling in. I was like, I'm sure that's fine, but yeah, like they've definitely sort of hit like a slightly higher profile. Like they were on Coachella this year and had like influencers and flower crowns stage diving while playing this like drop, I don't know what tune, just like that's the thing. It's like when bands from like the hardcore scene, especially the metallic end of the hardcore scene, hit their level of profile, usually it's like pretty clean and slick sounding and very like, it's in certain lanes. It's either we're so spooky or like I'm a rock star, ironically, or it's fucking Ronnie Radke bullshit. Don't get me started on that guy. But it's like, but the thing with Knocked Loose that impressed me is like it's just ugly, dirty, hardcore riffs. Like there's riffs on this new album. Like that's just it. There's riffs. Like it's not just like here's some sanitized, super processed like jun type stuff. Like it's just like I swear they it sounds like they detune their drums or something. Like, and like they must have like.
It's nice when people
I don't know what they tune to, but it's just like it's like deep and ugly and just loud and.
It's like maybe they listen to like some Melvins or some shit.
Right? Oh, definitely. Like that's the thing. It's like you can tell. It's like there's like half the guys in the band just look like Kevin Smith. And like and then there's like the West Borland looking guitar player. They're just like it's like some of the they're one of these bands that like once I did finally check out like some of the singles from this new album, like I was really impressed. Like it's just and it's like dudes playing like loud heavy music about sort of not being sure about spirituality and like that kind of thing as like a general overarching theme for the album. but it's just, like I said, they've got riffs. It's like good kind of like heavy head nodding kind of music a lot of the time, and like they've got some fast parts in there too, but it's, yeah, like I said, it's not just like, hey, we're trying to ironically sound like Metallica or something like that. It's just like, oh no, these are just like fast, ugly, nasty sounding, like heavy hardcore kind of things that are just getting really popular and ending up on like the fucking Jimmy Kimmel show.
Well, I think what you're sort of speaking to here kind of puts me in the mind of it sort of reminds me like Turnstile didn't put anything out this
Yeah.
year. Well,
It's like,
but their level, but they when I'm thinking on it now, like what's the most sort of recent thing that I can think of? It's like that's actually, it's actually really good from a punk standpoint, from a hard standpoint. It's people who have been involved in whatever their respective regional scene.
Yeah. Exactly.
For a while. They aren't afraid to sort of let their weird flag fly, on their higher venue sort of things. And it's sort of, they see hardcore as being sort of a viable mode. And they also, because they're friggin' these Gen Z people, largely, they just can't help but bring in other influences. They can't help but bring in, scuzzy bar rock, or they can't help but, in Turnstile's case, just totally, bring in hip hop friggin' framing and shit like that, right? I mean, it's part of, their regional thing that people kind of relate to. So again, anybody who's sort of going at that as like, like we choose hardcore from among things we could be doing. Like I can respect that. I can respect people sort of approaching it from that standpoint because God, there's just been so much music that's happened since the, you want to say, we're not talking first or second wave punk, we're not even talking like the heyday of hardcore. If you just talk about like the last time, like, heavy or guitar sort of oriented music had any cultural capital within the mainstream whatsoever, you are going back to the 90s. You could arguably say the aughts maybe is sort of an echo boom of that. But really,
you get new metal.
Everybody can sort of agree punk, hardcore, post-hardcore, rock, aggressively guitar-based music, metal, all of it sort of reached an acceptable sort of level for where they were and what their reference points were going to be, about within 5 years of Nirvana sort of the ending, right? Like including when they were active, just before, while they were active and popular. So if you want to really put it, I'd say from an academic standpoint, because God knows that's what I do for a living now, let's just call it the late 80s up until mid to late 90s, arguably. Anything that sort of reached its kind of, point of like artistic, zenith shit, right? Like the Husker Du, the Replacements for me. I mean, you can choose your ones, like Minutemen, Black Flag, all that stuff, just the kind of mid 80s to mid 90s, thereabouts, right? That's the decade that we could all agree as guitar music kind of fans, that kind of elevated the game. And since now it's like it's anything that can sort of bring it back in a vital way to the cultural center, then fucking hey. God, Dan, I sort of stopped off the end of your thing there. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I have strong feelings about this. Was that legit, or was that just like middle-aged man yells at clouds? I mean, tell me.
I mean, I'm very. It was very much a how do you do, fellow teens moment for me in terms of like trying to catch up with the music of the youths of today. But
there you go.
I've been impressed. Like, yeah, and even just like the fact that they could do. Yeah, like end up on like the Jimmy Kimmel show and have like a mosh pit. Like I'd seen people like I'd seen some people online saying, it was the first mosh pit on late night TV since Fear on Saturday Night Live, or like one of the first audience mosh pits.
It's like Soul Glow with the first mosh pit at the Tiny Desk concert. Not that.
Oh long. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, no, that's.
Well, gosh,
I just wanted to, as far as like sort of newer, like I figured I'd pair sort of the heavier end of, like, a couple of my picks. So yeah, that was
well,
that.
do you want to go? Do you want to? Since we're already on, I've been kind of stepping on and through yours, man. You want to
Yeah.
carry on with your second pick while we're at it?
Well, talk about another artist that I guess I mentioned a couple shows ago, but has had had kind of gotten a little more shine in the mainstream, is Doechii, who,
Okay.
she was one of my picks, I don't know, on one of the shows in the past few months anyway.
And who is she, sir, and why should we even care?
She's a rapper from Florida. She's on Top Dog Entertainment, the label that Kendrick Lamar was on until he started his own PG Lang label.
Okay.
Yeah, and since I mentioned her on, since I talked about her as a pick on the show, a few episodes, like in the summer, I think, sometime. She got nominated for like Best New Artist Grammy and a few others. She did a Tiny Desk. She did a Nardwuar interview. She had a couple of big appearances at Camp Flognaw, the like weekend festival that Tyler the Creator organizes every year. It's just kind of like a lot of stuff like that's happened for her. She put out an album in the fall called Alligator Bites Never Heal. She made her late night debut on Colbert a couple weeks ago also, and did a pretty cool, did a couple songs. It's just like I said, she's a rapper and like singer and just general, like, according to the Nardwuar interview, like school band nerd, to start out.
Dude,
from Florida.
May I just interject about Nardwuar? Because I saw a thing on Instagram that involved Nardwuar, and I immediately thought of you. It was Chappelle Roan versus Nardwuar.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if I even sent that to you. I send so much random.
Oh, trust me, that entered my orbit immediately.
Yeah, okay. I didn't watch enough of it, but it was like this is the first time I've heard this person talk.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I'll listen to 5 seconds of her music. I'm like, okay, it sounds like what I thought it would sound like without listening to it at all. It sounds like it. And I understand just from literally one question, like her and Nardwuar, I'm like, okay, I get it. I fucking get it. I get it. Just how, that's all it took.
Yeah.
It was like, okay. Anyway, bro, speaking of 2024, I don't think we can talk about the year without speaking about Chappelle Roan, which is a weird thing to say.
Oh, yeah, Chappelle Roan, definitely.
So,
yeah.
And I just remember you mentioning her during the summer, like after her like huge friggin' thing at Lollapalooza. I saw like an aerial shot of her thing at Lollapalooza, and it was like people were like, yeah, there's another act going on. The other, it's like, fuck, even still, man. I get like 40 people staring at me in a lecture, and that feels like a lot. And it's like, yeah, there's like, more than 70,000, more than 100,000 probably there for that one act. I don't even freaking know. But I saw the aerial picture, and I'm just like, God damn. And then, like, for the Nardwuar interview, she's like, anyway, man, her whole visual thing, her whole, like...
Oh, yeah. It's
like, well played, Jen said. Well played. Okay.
Yeah, she's definitely...
Your thing here.
No, that's okay. It's funny, 'cause, she's definitely somebody that I would have, I feel like it's not, it's, they're both kind of like up and coming young female artists who are part of like the LGBTQIA community as well. So like,
that's kind of,
it kind of fits there. And totally. Since you brought it up, Chappelle Roan is somebody that had a huge year this year. My girlfriend's a huge fan as well. That's how I heard her music. Well, kind of partially through that and partially through there's a pro wrestler, Hangman Adam Page, whose gimmick for the longest time was the anxious millennial cowboy, who used to post a lot of frequent Spotify playlists, and Chappelle Roan featured frequently into his Spotify playlists at one point. And that was, from there, it's just kind of wild seeing her take off like that. But it was crazy because you got to, you ended up with situations where she would be like booked to play like some mid-sized cities like Pride Festival and at the same time they were like had to open up, like move her to larger stages at like, you know, all these bigger, you know, like like Coachella and like Lollapalooza and all these festivals like that. Like she's been the artist that's been like, you know, all the youths are going up to see. And yeah, it's just like a wild performer, like has her like whole like visual presentation, like just talked about like John Waters being a huge influence and like pro wrestling and stuff like that. Like, you know, you'll see like concerts where like she'll be dressed up as like a Mexican wrestler for the show, or like she'll be dressed as like a knight in armor, or like just like
she
ridiculous
did like an award show or whatever during wearing the armor.
Yeah, like just does a lot of stuff like that, and just, you know, I like the fact that it's, you know, she's got a band, that not to be like old person, because I hate to, I've never been one of those like rockist guys, or I've tried not to be one of those rockist guys, but it's cool seeing like, hey, here's this performer who's got,
you can appreciate. It's nice to be grateful for. Yeah,
exactly. And like, like all the live footage I've seen has been like super impressive. Her album Diary of a Midwest Princess, I'm pretty sure, there's definitely a vinyl copy of it somewhere on the other side of the room from me here. Like I think that came out a little while ago, and that's the thing. It's like some of her songs that are taken off this year are ones that have been out. She, you know, put out just like on the internet like years ago, like a couple years ago, and it's just all kind of been building to this like wild, like explosive year, I guess. Yeah, like to the point where like dudes like you know, old dudes like us are like, oh, you hear that new song? You know, you hear that Phenomenon song. But yeah, no, she
in the industries that I participate in, I still am on the earlier side of the curve. That's a curve. That's why like I love working at colleges and universities, because until I'm like 50, I'm still like considered young at it.
Yeah.
And until I'm 60, I don't even really start to hit like, you know, pretty much the median age, right? So yeah, man. I'd like to see Chappelle Roan try and teach a lecture. Actually, she could probably do a killer.
Probably, yeah.
Never mind, Chappelle Roan. Never mind. I'm gonna Camtasia that out, except I totally won't, because she's got bigger fish to fry. Okay, do you have anything else you want to add to your latest thing here, Dan? I feel like
it's just been really cool seeing like Doechii kind of start to hit that next level of recognition. Like, like her Colbert performance was really cool, and like, you know, she seems very, it's, you know, speaking of someone very into visual presentation, like she did this whole like cool choreography where it was like her and two other dancers wearing kind of like identical outfits with their hair all braided together.
Oh.
So the three of them were all connected while doing this, like, you know,
that's real theater kid stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's I appreciate, but at the same time, it's like she can fucking rap. Like, you know, it's like there's a reason why, like, you know, people like Kendrick Lamar and like Tyler the Creator are really sort of starting to like, you know, give her a lot of, like, she just did a big appearance at the TDE Records Toy Drive in Compton that like basically opening for Kendrick Lamar. Yeah.
Dang. Has he played the Super Bowl? Did I miss him playing the Super Bowl? Has the Super Bowl happened? When does the Super Bowl happen? I think
that's in February.
Fucking A. Okay. I was concerned. That's how little interest I have in football outside of Kendrick Lamar highlighting the Super Bowl this year. Okay.
Between
February.
between that and
okay.
I was going to say, between that and the there's a football game that's going to have Beyonce as the halftime show on Christmas Day.
That's true.
So that means I'm inadvertently going to catch some football while waiting for music to start, probably twice now in the course of a couple of months eventually.
Well, if some football friggin' lands in the proximity of music, that's hardly music's fault, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
You take what you can in these sort of high-profile venues.
Exactly.
Cool, man.
All right.
So what else we got on Doechii? Anything else, man?
Well, I mean, like I said, she put out her first kind of like, I guess they've been referring to it as a mixtape, but still like her first like full length, called Alligator Bites Never Heal on TDE. It's definitely worth checking out. And it's been cool seeing her get like nominated for a fucking. Well, yeah, she's up against Chappell Roan for Best New Artist Grammy this year. But like, I was kind of surprised. Not surprised, but still genuinely surprised. Like, oh hey, I guess people are checking her out like that. And yeah, no, that's
Within the
sort of,
same category. She's
yeah,
she's kind of bringing it up. Ugh.
yeah, and okay, yeah. Anyway, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, sure, man. Well, again, I'm just finding, like, as I kind of sit here with my notes just kind of in the other window here, that's I'm having the chance to speak to some of these as we've gone forward, which is excellent. So I'm actually I have moved into a new interface for music, which I'm paying now $25 a month to go with the YouTube Premium Music, which means the ad-free interface. But then also they had what they call, like, I don't know, premium interface features, which I didn't quite get what that even entailed. I'm just like, whatever, just take my money, Google, whatever, I don't care. But as I've been going through it, and we're back.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to turn what just transpired into a kind of comical cut point Camtasia. And without any further way finding or describing about my intentionality as per this narrative in the Skype as opposed to the other narrative in the notes, being the academic, pedantic motherfucker that I surely am aspiring to be most of the time of my life, I'm going to take the phone here. I'm going to take the magic phony pony app here. I've got a list. I've got a playlist. I've realized we have playlists for each of these shows. I want to create a meta playlist with all the playlists from that we've done, right? A playlist made of other playlists. Or I may give each playlist its own sort of QR code, rather, and just kind of like, oh, well, here's an Instagram post if you feel like listening to just, the YouTube, list from, say, whatever. It's a way of, like, revitalizing, recharging, and refreshing the online content, right? Give them the QR code that brings them to the playlist and or potentially the show itself. Anywho, I'm a middle-aged nerd, and this is what I'm about. So above and beyond any of that, I'm gonna hit the randomizer button on the 2024 You Fucking Die playlist. And so hereabouts, thereabouts, what do we got here? Oh, okay, Davy Brown. That's off The Last Tail Light in the West by Ben Nichols. And that's actually Ben Nichols from Lucero. So that kind of gives me an opportunity here to just momentarily speak to the fact that, first of all, Lucero is, I mentioned this basically more shows often than not, how much I enjoy them as writers, but also as singer, as, Ben is a writer and a singer and a guitar player, for sure. Brian Venable is such just a straight up, master lead guitar player. He's just so there. And, everybody in their group, the keyboard player, the drummer, Roy, he's just like, when you talk about understated people doing things that, it's just the whole thing. They don't have a bad song in their catalog. I enjoy every record that they have put out since they began in the 90s or whatever as a recording entity. And they actually have, although there's been no official album release this year, they've been kind of touring and whatnot. They are putting out in January Lucero Unplugged, which features
Nice.
Ben, which features Ben as well as their keyboard player, who I feel bad. I can't remember. It's in my brain. I know it, but I'm not well enough to try and guess it at it right now. But it's a two-person representing the group, and it's coming out, and they got a couple singles off of it, and it's just songs from across their catalog, reinterpreted for two people, right? Guitar, vocal, and strings. So it's just, or guitar, vocal, and piano. Sorry. Yeah. So Rick Steff. There we go. There we go. I don't have to feel
Nice.
like. Yeah. Okay. Rick Steff. And actually, when I put these notes up, when I put that picture of the sort of who do I think had a significant record that I wanted to kind of speak to when I put it up on the Instagram thingy, I tagged David, the drummer for Rad Owl, who when I did the interview back in the middle of the summer-ish with David, and then also David plays pretty often with John Snodgrass, who he's a touring and singing legend, and he put out himself a really good album, or a really good record that I enjoyed this year, Barge at Will. I spent a lot of time listening to it this summer. I can't imagine my time visiting my kids in Kamloops and staying in hotels and feeling a bit sorry for myself without John Snodgrass and the Barge at Will record. So it's cool that David, from Rad Owl, even kind of put me on to that. So when I put up the, here's the, artists and whatnot on the show, he actually, I tagged Rad Owl, and then John noted it, and then he actually tagged Ben and Rick Steff, right, from Lucero on the thing. So I'm just like, this surely is fulfilling its purpose in whatever way I could have anticipated or hoped for the Enterprise as far as it goes. It's, for me, these what pass for little serendipitous moments. And the fact that, I just reach for, Lucero-related content, right, whenever I can. And so the record Glass Pale Light in the West is actually associated with, it's an EP, an acoustic solo EP. It's Ben Nichols' only solo EP or solo thing so far outside of Lucero that I'm aware of. And it's based around characters. Each song is named after a different character from the Cormac McCarthy novel Blood Meridian, which I have read multiple times, love inside and out, love it to death. And I just found out towards the end of this year that Ben Nichols' brother is the acclaimed filmmaker Mike Nichols, right?
Yeah.
Right? So he has written and created like some really awesome, atmospheric, powerful indie films. That's what he does, Mike Nichols. And Take Shelter for me is Michael Shannon's best performance ever. And it's just this powerful, like it's tough to watch that film from a psychological standpoint, but it's also absolutely brilliant. And so when I was just kind of going through the interwebs, I found out that actually Mike Nichols, right, so Ben Lucero's brother, has obtained the film rights to Cormac McCarthy's final two novels, The Passenger and Stella Maris. And I have read those books, and I fucking love them to death. Cormac McCarthy, if you want to talk, I'm an English prof in my friggin' job, and I friggin' love Cormac McCarthy so friggin' much. So when I'm just sort of going through my playlist here, and I'm like, okay, there's Ben's friggin' solo EP from 10 years ago or whatever, 15 years ago, whatever it was. Showing up on the thing, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to listen to that. But then it sort of has all these other kind of far-reaching associations. And I guess, I don't know, I'll see if the next one is significant enough to speak to whatsoever. Otherwise, I'll pass the mic. What do we got here? MC5, Kick Out the Jams. That's a winner in all circumstances. How can that not be on a playlist of any era? I do want to say that for people who passed away, right, we lost Brother Wayne Kramer this year, did we not?
We did. Yeah, Wayne Kramer passed away. Didn't somebody else in the MC5 pass away this year too? Or something?
Oh, God, I think the drummer did. Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I think he did with less fanfare because, Wayne Kramer had a much higher profile. But yeah. And I guess that's just sort of the last thing I'll say associated with that, apart from the fact that, God, any chance to listen to the MC5 in the middle of the day, like, it's just fucking A, right? Testify, right? Fucking A, of course. But actually, before he passed, Brother Wayne actually recorded a guitar track on a track for the Jesse Malin Silver Patron Saints LP. Let's see, I'm going to fail on her name. It's Mosshart, Allison Mosshart. I'm not going to fail on the name. As a singer, she covers she covers "Turn Up the Mains" on that record, on the tribute record, which is produced through the Sweet Foundation, Victoria Sweet's Sweet Relief Foundation, and they put out that notable Sweet Relief comp back in the '90s, which had a lot of fucking awesome people on it.
Yeah.
Not as well known as No Alternative or whatever from the era. So that whole organization, sort of fundraising, still exists. And of the record that sort of came to benefit Jesse when he suffered a spinal stroke while on a solo tour in Argentina, his healthcare costs while he was there, getting him back to America, getting significant treatment. It's all been part of a very wide-ranging effort. And when I see Brother Wayne on the NC5, I'm like, he actually plays on a track with Allison Mosshart on that record. The Silver Save Trains that's out this year, which is currently out right now. But also, apart from the fact that he's on it, fucking Tom Morello is on it from Rage Against the Machine. Fucking little Stevie Van Zandt from Bruce Springsteen Band is also on it.
And The Sopranos.
Is somebody, and it's got and Mike Watt is playing the bass. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Like, holy fucking shit. Like, and it's unbelievable. What just one song, it's like, I think we could use a few guitar players on this one,
Let's just get some of the legends.
Right. So there we go. I managed to kind of smash in a sort of haphazard fashion at various of the things, man. What else you got? What's on your list, man? What's your next?
I just want to quickly touch on a couple of things from your last couple of picks. I can't remember. I think I mentioned it on the show before that Ben Nichols actually stayed at a punk house that I lived at in Victoria.
You
when
did
I lived
mention
there.
that.
Yes, with his old band, Vegas Thunder, stayed at my house.
And you
when
told
they
me
played
they
in
weren't
Victoria.
near as good as Lucero, is what you mentioned.
No, they were more like a straight ahead garage rock band, but like. And yeah, one of the other guys I lived with drank all their beer while they were at the show because they left a bunch of beer in our fridge. And then my roommate Reg.
Bad mistake. Amateur mistake. Sort of great, man, but you should have known better.
Yeah. But anyways, that and Allison Mosshart, I've been a fan of hers ever since. I don't know if you remember the band Discount.
I do remember the band Discount. Is she part of that?
Yeah, that was her.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Which is wild because
okay.
I saw them play in like
I'm writing this down, folks. That's
I saw them play in with DBS in like a 24-hour coffee shop in Surrey, BC.
what?
And it's just kind of wild seeing her play go on to be in the Kills and that was it. The Dead Weather was that the band with Jack White and
yes,
just
that's right.
do all this really cool stuff. And it's like I remember when you were in this pop punk band from Florida that did an REM cover.
Discount.
Anyways,
she is involved in Discount. I had no. There we go. This is educational for me. All right. So, anything else you want to before you get into your thing here further, my friend?
No, I guess that was it for what I had for that.
Cool.
But I got a couple other picks that I'll throw together just because they're related.
Yeah, man.
Just because it's been such a long year. It's kind of aptly titled that I'd almost forgotten that the Chisel's second album, What a Fucking Nightmare, came out in 2024. Just because
record, I dig it.
Yeah, and their guitar player Charlie Manning Walker, his other band Chubby and the Gang, released their third full length back in October. I remember you talking
about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's I've talked about both these bands on the show before, and they're both favorites of mine, and they both put out pretty great records. The Chisel, that was one of the big things about What a Fucking Nightmare is that it was their first album for Pure Noise, the same label that put out the Knocked Loose album. Because their first album was on La Vida es un Muse, I think that's how it's pronounced. The British punk label that puts out Homefront and stuff. But yeah, they kind of made the jump to that next level of like bigger indie kind of thing this year. And yeah, What a Fucking Nightmare. It's, kind of like angry street punk, but also really catchy. And yeah, like they even throw in like they even throw in like a couple like Leatherface, like blatantly borrowed Leatherface riffs here and there, and like that kind of thing.
Nice.
And like
I like already. You said the right thing. I yeah, anything to do with Leatherface or Leatherface adjacent, I'm like, you didn't have to even say anything further than that, and I'll probably enjoy the shit.
Yeah, awesome. And like the Chisel, they ended up having to cancel their U.S. tour this year due to some drama, but their opening act, there was a situation with their opening act where they weren't really getting along, and the opening act being more of like a tough guy street punk band called Conservative Military Image, who you can imagine what they look like with that name. Yeah, they apparently, I guess, beat up the guys from the Chisel, or there was some sort of physical altercation that led to the guys from the Chisel just being like, whatever, we're leaving, see ya. And they canceled their North American tour because of that. But, they're still like, I've been revisiting this album a bit because it was, like I said, it's felt like a long year. And it is kind of aptly titled because there have been, a few things this year that have happened this year that could be constituted as fucking nightmares. And yeah, and then the Chubby and the Gang album is almost kind of the flip side to that, because that's the that's Charlie's more like pub rock influenced, kind of catchy, like more, sometimes they'll still do some like upbeat, faster songs, but yeah, it's there's more, there's a little less Coxbar and a little more Nick Lowe kind of thing in their inspiration.
That is an incredibly specific reference, which if you can get that, then well done to everybody. That's good. It's the high quality discourse is what we got.
But yeah, here. And it's also their first. It's Chubby and the Gang's first album for Flat Spot Records, which is the label that puts out like Scowl and like some of the other like bigger bands, from that like Gen Z hardcore getting popular kind of like scene. But yeah, it's their first release for that label as well. And it's cool to see them get a chance. I'm hoping they'll, maybe play more shows over here if possible because of that, though. Who the fuck knows these days? But yeah, Charlie Manning Walker had a good year in terms of putting out two, really good releases with both of his bands. And yeah. So yeah, The Chisel, What a Fucking Nightmare, and Chubby and the Gang, and Then There Was are kind of like 1-2 pick there for me.
Awesome. Well, I think maybe I'll just reach for the phone one more time here because, we are getting towards an hour on this thing. But I will just sort of see what associations maybe had from the random playlist of the 2024 You Fucking Die public playlist. So we'll just see. Shuffle play. First contender here. Elvis is Everywhere, Mojo Nixon. I think I got I
rest in peace.
Sometimes where I'm like, Dan mentioned that on the show, and I should probably, because
rest in peace.
Mojo Nixon died this year, did he not?
He did. Yeah, that was.
Elvis is Everywhere. I was like, Elvis. I was like in the midst of just like this. Like literally, folks, don't try this unless you have friggin' like almost 2 decades of an experience as a teacher. I did marking, Dan, and World in general for 28 and a half hours at one point in like the past, 4 or 5 days, whatever day Wednesday leading into Thursday. Gosh. Anyway, and at one point during that, I was like, is that Mojo Nixon? Is he singing about Elvis? I'm like, yes. Thank God for the end of the year playlist. I'm like, a moment of levity here. So hopefully that's really on hand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, rest in power, Mojo Nixon.
Rest in power, Mojo Nixon, for sure.
I gotta I'm just gonna give her another spin, see what comes up. The Devil Taking Names by the Lawrence Arms. Okay, well, this will be the year for me that I have harassed and badgered the Lawrence Arms Instagram person, like to the point where, like, every few days I'll just, send them something and we have like some kind of interaction. I have no idea who this person is. I'm like, it could be Brendan Kelly, it could be, the drummer, it could be just somebody's friend who I have no friggin' idea. So much shouting out and respect. They had their annual War on Christmas weekend not that long ago. Which, God, if I had just been slightly more organized and slightly less unemployed for a certain period of the year, I would have actually made myself go down there for that. They actually had planned to do 2 nights, but because of demand, they got 3. And actually, I have their. I don't know. I'm gonna approach them. I think I have a legit actual entry point to reach them as artists. I think so. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. And just one more, just to see if I can speak to anything here. Hold My Life by the Replacements. Well, first of all, I'm always listening to the Replacements just because they're one of those bands for me. Since I was, age 15 and I first discovered them, I can literally trace my enjoying the Replacements to the first semester of grade 10. Shout out to my son Ethan, who in the semester of grade 10 didn't discover the Replacements. He discovered the Replacements courtesy of me as a toddler before he could even process language. But my son actually, Ethan, I will take this moment to say, he got MVP for an entire basketball tournament over the weekend. It wasn't just like for a game. In his 15-year-old youth bracket in his town, for Interior BC. I don't know how many other teams were involved. He got MVP for the thing. And above and beyond that, what we see here with the Replacements is that Slim Dunlap passed away. The second guitar player that the Replacements had during their run. The Replacements had 2 guitar players, both of whom were actually named Bob, because that's Slim Dunlap's real name, Bob. There was Bob Stinson, and then the guy who they got to be Bob Stinson's replacement was Bob Dunlap. And Paul Westerberg was like, we can't fucking call him Bob. We can't call our second guy Bob, so we're going to call him Slim. That's his, whatever. I don't know if it was quite if he was the one who was calling him Slim, but he was like, we can't have our second guitar player, our replacement for Bob being called Bob. And within their Bobosphere, within the Replacements universe, their biographer, actually Bob Mayer, right? Another significant person, right? Producer of their pretty much yearly reissues of their earlier stuff, who I got to interview for the Ed Nontech show, right? The academic show, but in the spirit that also was content which was directly related to this. I got to talk with Bob Mayer. And I'll just throw it out there too, that Paul Westerberg had one hell of a weird year, if you just look at it. Because not only did he lose a guitar player, Bob Slim Dunlap, again, excellent, amazing guitar player with the Replacements. He released a couple of second solo albums, which Bruce Springsteen has actually covered some of his music before, and it's coming out now, a little bit of it. He recorded it years ago, and now it's kind of being released. But again, just in terms of how things tend to go with the Replacements, universe, it's very strange. Is that so? Slim Dunlap passed away 2 days after Bob Stinson's birthday, right? So again, Slim Dunlap passed away right around, within 2 days of the celebration of when Bob Stinson came into the world. But then above and beyond that which, because with the Replacements at my level of ridiculous fandom, there is always above and beyond that. Maybe there isn't. Maybe I've reached the end of that tangent. Hold My Life by the Replacements, and I'm just trying to think if there's anything else about Slim Dunlap that I should be throwing out here. It's trivia. Well, still got the mic. And there isn't, except Rest in Power Slim. There. I feel great, Dan. How do you feel? Do you want to? You got more? You got any more you want to throw out here, my man?
You know what? Since it got touched on earlier, I'll just go with one that we can't have best of the year talk without mentioning, and that's Kendrick Lamar. I have my list. I just have GNX and the Beef. And because I have had a chance to listen to the new Kendrick Lamar album, and I really enjoy it. Yeah, I like the fact
awesome
there's been a general trend that I've noticed in a lot of hip hop this year that artists are sort of making more conscious homages to their own regional sounds instead of just like being, for a while it seemed like a lot of more popular hip hop anyway was kind of like auto-tune triplet, same kind of, 2 or 3 kind of like samey sound lanes. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, like Megan Thee Stallion had a really good year this year. And one of the things she does is, she definitely pays homage to a lot of other artists from Texas and like has like older Texas artists featured on her songs. And definitely like you can see the inspiration of folks like UGK and like Slim Thug and that like on her music.
It feels like she's been around for a while. Like, I mean,
she has been,
she's still relatively a new artist, but she like new artist, whatever that means. But
and it's one of the cool things about her. She's basically doing her thing independently, or like she's like releasing all her own stuff. Like she managed to get out of like any label sort of entanglements that she had. Like she owns her publishing, she owns her like all of her music, she releases it her own. Like, I mean, she's obviously got people working for her. I'm sure she's not like, calling Spotify to make sure her album gets hosted or whatever, like herself. But God. Like, like
Spotify, like,
but still like, like but that's one thing, like, like she's really, been like bringing a lot of like classic Texas stuff, and there's like newer artists in Texas that sort of pull on a lot of those classic sounds. And like Denzel Curry just put out an album that's like a big homage to like older like Memphis rap, and like the new Kendrick Lamar is like, it's some real West Coast sounds there. And even like the music video that he made for Squabble Up, which like I don't know if you remember like when they put out the video. I know you said you haven't listened to the album really, but like when he put out the video for Not Like Us, and there was like a snippet of another song at the beginning.
That's right. That's the song
he made a video for that. That song is on GNX. It's called Squabble Up.
Okay.
And the video for that just has like a lot of like all this different imagery that's like, just like it's like, paying tribute to like different aspects of like West Coast hip hop culture over the decades. And like I thought that was really cool. Like everything from like references to everything like to like Ice-T album covers to like, the like hyphy movement from San Francisco in the aughts and like that kind of thing. And like I've seen a lot of critics point out how like certain songs are like sort of very like direct homages to like artists that he's talked about being direct, big influences on him. And it's not really, it's almost, I don't know, it's not like a full like large scale album like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers was, or like any of it. It almost seems like, hey guys, here's a little something that's like me, a little tribute to the stuff I love, and it feels like, there might be more coming. It wouldn't surprise me if he had more that he's working on, just because like he had a big year. Like, we've talked about it before, but like
next year. He's going on tour
he's going on tour next year. He did, he did that big show.
I like the fact that he has a woman opening for him. I don't know why I like that, but I do. It just like it puts him in the right lane. It's sort of like I'm not saying he's pandering. I'm saying because she I'm sure has a record out now, and I'm sure it's fucking lit.
Yeah,
but it's just sort of like
SZA that's opening for him, isn't it? Who she's also she's another, like she's been part of like TDE as well, like the label that he was on before he started releasing his own, started his own like project PG Lang to put out his music. Like TDE, the label that also puts out Dochi. SZA is one of their big artists. So, but yeah, and like you can't not talk about the beef as like something fucking notable about music in
I was
2024.
like, dude,
Like
it was
it's
entertaining. It was like it was
it was
all the show
entertaining.
support that I was feeling towards other shit. I was like,
Yeah,
this encapsulates so many things I'm unhappy about generally, and I can project. It allows
and
me to project.
it's not often you get like, I mean, like there's been a lot of like rap beefs, I guess you could say, over the years that have like gone a lot of
This
different
was a beef
ways.
for the age.
But this was one that was like, it was cool that it was just like, all right, here's, we're just gonna make songs at each other for a while, but like it's not just like, hey, I'm better than you at this, or like, hey, I've got more money than you. It's just like, hey, I am going to thoroughly dissect all of the many problems I have with you and write really great, interesting songs about the many problems I have with you and release them at these pretty wild
in 10
intervals.
years, Kendrick will still be firing on all cylinders.
Oh yeah, and
still
it's just like
kicking ass. And whereas Drake is going to have to just live with this kind of following him around.
He's just. It's two entirely different worlds is the thing. Like it's when you look at it, like two entirely different like just universes of artists. Like, and it's funny. I don't know. It's actually the other day I just watched the video of Yasin Bey, formerly known as Mos Def, when the recent interview with him, where they asked him what his thoughts on Drake was, were like we're around the time of the Kendrick beef, and he's just kind of like, oh God, you're gonna get, it's like, oh, and the point of his argument, his thoughts on Drake was basically that he thought that Drake's music sounded like shopping. And that you were like a very well appointed, the interviewer talks about how Drake's, it's like a very well appointed Target store. Like that's what Drake's music sounds like. Yeah, and
I love that guy. He's like, that's
like, so that was just
like,
that.
Complaining to Spotify. Speaking of complaining to Spotify, as you were, Dan, that's what you're fucking doing. Like, that's the least rap fucking response. Like, I'm going to fucking sue a corporate entity with my army of fucking lawyers. That's your okay. Like, rap has left the room and had long time ago, man. That's your fucking thing. I mean, and then there's like the Drake lookalike competition named Toronto. Go. Yeah. Anyways,
it was
good one to go out on.
But yeah, just like, like even just like the three or four songs that came out, like during that whole beef, like that would be, just putting that as an EP. Like if you put those four songs as the like, here's the complete Drake character assassination EP or whatever, like that would be a top release of the year on its own, like.
He's got it. It's up for a Grammy. It's up for a Grammy award, and it's also like, I mean, they normally play a montage of fucking songs during the halftime. So I'm just like, he's gonna have to, right? It was the biggest song of the summer, right? They're gonna have to, like, please, I want to hear the entire, thing of rock. Fuck them all, and
I'm pretty sure.
Patio or to do this.
Yeah.
I was like, really, that was the last song that was playing. They Not Like Us. I'm like, all right, I can live with that on my playlist coming in to record. So it's a good way to get your last one. I mean, surely we have more about this, but.
Did you watch that the concert, the video of the concert that he did, the pop out,
the
like the first concert. Live performance?
Oh my God!
Yeah, he did it 6 times. Yeah, he played
it a couple of times, man.
Yeah,
a couple of times. That was fucking awesome.
Yeah. Anyways, so that's when I have to go out on as my pick of just like Kendrick Lamar's general output of 2024. Including the complete character assassination of Aubrey Graham. and the GNX album.
Man, that's a good one. Thanks for letting me kind of just stomp in on that at the very end there, because I mean, I'm glad we got to acknowledge it. Again, I haven't listened to the new record as such, because I've really been just kind of wanting to set some time to deal with it, on its own terms appropriately, because I just had a lot of heavy kind of stuff on a personal and work kind of bandwidth where I'm like, I don't need to add to the level of heaviness. I need to detract from the level of heaviness. And now the work is just sort of on pause for a little while. I'm like, okay, I will find some time between writing the notes for this, which will come out in 2025 to be sure. So I'll be able to reach it from a more educated standpoint. But everything that you were sort of speaking to there, lands. I mean, again, I've told students unironically that this guy is a literary genius. And I see it from just as a literary standpoint, never mind whatever else, just I do literature for a living, okay? And I see the attributes of friggin' a literary genius there. And it's bound up with a whole other bunch of shit that I don't understand or, can even relate to because of its complexity and its cultural, milieu. However, I can say within my friggin' modest little quarter of the universe, I can say, fuck, you got to get that credit for being what it is, quite frankly. So I'm going to just use that diatribe to slither my way out of here. I'm going to say thanks to everybody who's ever checked out the show for any reason whatsoever. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope 2024 was, in the end, the year that you needed to be. And hopefully you find the holiday time unstressful. And if it's stressful, at least hopefully it's stressful in good ways, but restful, rejuvenative, and everything else. Anything else you want to send out here, Dan, before we end the old recording?
No. Happy holidays, I guess, or it's not. Just hang in there, folks. Yeah.
Yeah. Later, Gators.
It's interesting.
Exactly. See you on the other side of the year, that is.
Yep.